Welcome back to Brian Knows Movies. Let's talk about Till. Director Chinonye Chukwu brings the story of Emmett Till and Mamie Till-Mobley to the big screen. This is a film that covers the tragic injustice that was the lynching of Emmett Till, but it also focuses specifically on Mamie Till-Mobley, his mother, and how through her grief she was able to be the linchpin of the civil rights movement. Danielle Deadwyler stars as Mamie Till-Mobley, Jayln stars as Emmett Till, Frankie, Faison, and Whoopi Goldberg stars as Mamie Till-Mobley's parents. So what's the film about? Well, it starts out as the story of Emmett Till, a 14-year-old boy from Chicago who goes down south to Mississippi to visit his uncle and his cousins. He's a boy that's full of life, but unfortunately doesn't understand how the world works, specifically how the world works in the South. Race relations between blacks and whites are much different from the way that they are at home, and he doesn't understand that he can't do certain things or speak a certain type of way to white people in 1955 small town Mississippi. So Emmett and his cousins go to a convenience store and he goes inside to buy some candy. While in there, he tries to start a conversation with Carolyn Bryant, who was the white store owner and was working the front of the store. Big mistake, obviously, you get your stuff and go, but he didn't know that. In fact, he remarked to her that she reminded him of a movie star. He leaves the store, she comes out and he whistles at her. Obviously, huge mistake. She goes to get a gun and she's shooting at all the black patrons of the store because she's so offended by this black boy taking an interest in her. So the cousins, they keep it to themselves. They're hoping nothing comes out of it, but as you know, a mob shows up at the house of his uncle and drags Emmett Till out of the house. That was the last time he would be seen alive. The uncle calls Mamie in Chicago and tells her what happens, and obviously she's just full of despair. She wants her son found. She's hoping that he's still alive, and she's trying to elicit help from anyone that she can. The NAACP here offer their services to help find him. They find him. Unfortunately, he's at the bottom of the Tallahatchie River, and he's bloated, he's dead, and you can tell before he even went in the river that he was mutilated, violated, and shot. It was a lynching of a boy for whistling at a white woman in 1955 Mississippi. So that's what the first story is about. It's about Emmett Till. But then it transitions, and it's really about Mamie. Mamie and her dealing with the grief of losing her son, of her getting her son sent to her in Chicago and seeing the atrocities that was done to him, and fighting for justice, wanting justice for her son. She goes on a campaign which results in 2 individuals actually being arrested for the murder. Then she travels to Money, Mississippi to testify on behalf of her son. So I'm going to talk about this movie pretty fast and loose because there's no real story here. The historical record of the Emmett Till murder and everything that happens subsequent to that is readily available and is pretty well known throughout the country by most. If you've never heard the Emmett Till story, this is going to be a great introduction to the visceral nature of race relations and racism, specifically in the South in the 1950s, but also hopefully there might be some comparisons you can make to race relations and racism even today. Chinonye Chukwu does some courageous things with her directing of this movie as well. Firstly, she shows Emmett Till, just like you would have seen him in 1955. The body is recovered here, and when it's at the morgue, they don't do a flashback to old pictures or anything of Emmett Till. She has her team recreate the lynched body of Emmett Till, and it's one of the most visceral things you'll ever see in your life. Him sitting on that morgue, bloated, unrecognizable in terms of how bad that he was beaten and bludgeoned. You see the bullet wound in his head. You see everything. And once the images are there, it doesn't sneak away quickly. You have to sit with it. Just like Mamie Till-Mobley is sitting with looking at her son, not knowing how bad it was going to be, but accepting the fact that racism did this to her son. You go to the funeral, and it's an open casket funeral, and you see him again and again there and there and there. And some people thought that that might have been a little bit gratuitous or unnecessary in the filmmaking. But if the filmmaker is going to be completely committed to the story of Mamie Till-Mobley and her courage, it stemmed right there from that decision to have that open casket funeral, to have that Jet magazine photo shoot, and show the world what racism does to black bodies in this country. Something else the movie does that you see in a lot of films, and I don't know how I feel about it, is how they showcase the NAACP. Now, the NAACP in this movie, they're very helpful in terms of getting the word out. They push Mamie Till-Mobley to the forefront to give these speeches and to really show her and her son as martyrs of the movement. Some of it feels really uncomfortable because it's like, dang, can she get a chance to sit with what's going on with her? But you also sit with it and understand that, okay, the NAACP is dealing with lynchings all the time. The impersonable ways that they're treating Mamie Till-Mobley and the lynching of her son stems from the work that they have to do. And it's sad that the NAACP was so ingrained with dealing with lynchings at the time that it almost felt a little cold. She goes along with it and she understands it the more that she goes through this ordeal down south, specifically while dealing with the trial. They also show NAACP as being kind of uppity, looking down on certain black folks, which is another trope you see when you see the NAACP in film. I wish we would kind of get away with that. I get they're the educated class of people, but that part gets a little old for me. The performances make this film. You could not find a better Mamie Till-Mobley than Danielle Deadwyler. She gave the performance of the year so far, in my opinion. Man or woman, it's the best acting performance that I've seen in any film up to this date. Her name is going to come up again and again and again as we get closer to awards season, because what she did here was captivating. It wasn't just the grief and despair that she showcased, but in that grief and despair, she was able to show us a strength and a defiance and a courage with very little dialogue needed. It was all in her expressions. It was all in her body language. Once again, may be the best performance of the year of anyone acting today. I think that Whoopi Goldberg also reminded us why she's an EGOT winner. What she does, and specifically one scene, is pretty incredible. Frankie Faison as the father of Mamie Till-Mobley, he's great. Jayln Hall, it's crazy to think that a 13-year-old boy was able to understand the material he was dealing with, give us an image of Emmett Till that was refreshing and bright and full of life and full of energy. The scenes that he had with a grieving mother acting next to Danielle Deadwyler, the way that she was emoting and being able to keep the face that he had, that was really incredible. I think they did some really cool things with cinematography. One thing I'll mention is the lighting in this movie, specifically when they're outside or when they're next to a window. You're getting a lot of supposedly natural sunlight, but the sun always seems to be unnatural to me. It's very intense. It's like beating you over the head. It's not a warming type of light. It's like an intense beat you down type of light, if that makes sense. It's very unnerving. No matter the way anyone's acting, people can be acting full of joy. They could be acting in terms of anger because of what happened. It doesn't really matter what people are doing. That sun is always there. It's like beating you over the head. And what I think that she was trying to do, Director Chukwu, was to showcase that, you know, when you shed a light on racism in this country, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be something that you can't run or hide from. When it's there in your face, it's there. And that's what I felt like that lightning was supposed to represent throughout the film. Also, practical effects and what they were able to do with the body of Emmett Till when he's recovered. I think that that was something that was done very tastefully. I think it was made a significant impact on me and the audience goers too. It wasn't like a horror movie. It was very much like the way that you would feel if you saw a dead body that was mutilated. It took your breath away, not in a good way, because it was so uncomfortable and so unnerving to see a body look the way that it does in this film. Old pictures, obviously, they're very disturbing, the ones that are in jet and the other images that are floating out there on the internet. But this is full 4K. You see everything. And it takes the dramatization of this movie to a whole nother level. So what's my rating? See it, stream it, or skip it. I'm giving Till a see it. This is a 5-star movie for me. This is the most important movie of the year, in my opinion. I think that Danielle Deadwyler has the best performance of the year. I think that the supporting cast is just as strong. The storytelling that happens with this plot, I feel like it was very even and well done, and there's metaphor throughout the film for you to grasp hold to. But I'll be honest, this film hurts. This is one of the most uncomfortable viewing experiences I've ever had watching a movie. This is the most uncomfortable I've ever been in a theater. There was not a dry eye in the theater. You don't leave the movie really feeling any type of motivation or any type of inspiration. You're inspired by Mamie Till-Mobley, of course, but you leave upset and angry because why are these things happening in 1955? And why can you also see the parents of Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown and Tamir Rice and all these other mothers who also have to be the faces for a movement, showing pictures of their sons who have been killed unnecessarily and unjustly. It's like you get all these things in this film and it upsets you. So I want you to go see it. You shouldn't see it alone. I think you need to see it either with some friends or some family members, someone that you can talk to and unpack this film after the movie. You're going to want to get this out of you, the anger that it makes you feel. What can you do to help to move race relations forward, how to turn the tide? Those are the type of discussions I think this movie is trying to intend to encourage. But just know that this isn't a fun watch, but I think it's a necessary watch as it is the most important film of the year. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a guy that loves movies. If you're planning to see Till this weekend or sometime within the next couple of weeks, let me know what you think of the film in the comments section below. Also, if you're looking for more information about the Emmett Till story, there is a great documentary that was produced and directed by Keith Beauchamp, who is a co-writer on this film. It's called Life and Story of Emmett Louis Till. I will put a link of that in the description below for you. Thank you so much for joining me. Please continue to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will see you at the theaters next week.